Simple, true, radio. Simple, true, radio. Simple, true, radio. Simple, true, radio.
Welcome. I'm Infinite Reality, so are you, and so is everybody else. And today I want to talk a little bit about this man, Mark Lathams. And he used to be the opposition leader of the Labor Party through some of the tenure of John Howard before he was ousted by his own party. And let me just say straight off the bat, I actually have a lot of time for this man. You know, he today speaks a lot of good that hopefully that people can twig onto, you know, but I won't hold my breath in that account. But why I'm bringing it up is because last night on a Facebook live chat, I happened to get a mention of a question that I asked to him. And the question went like this. The question was, could you talk about the many UN treaties John Howard made without the knowledge of the people? And what is Agenda 21 and how does it affect us? Now, he actually answered my question, and this is what I'd like to show you now.
Rusty Rhymes asks, could you talk about the UN treaties Howard made without the knowledge of the people? And what is Agenda 21 and how does it affect us?
Well, this is something that's being pushed through the UN. I know some people are concerned about it. Howard wasn't a great signer or supporter of the United Nations. I suppose most notably he went outside the United Nations to undertake his worst ever decision, the invasion of Iraq, and we're still paying the penalty for that. I've got to say, for all the people worried about the United Nations these days, it doesn't impact that much on Australian political discussion behind the scenes. I don't think our politicians are led by the nose by the United Nations. I know it's a body that a lot of people are worried about. It's had one notable failure recently, the Paris Climate Change Agreement, Donald Trump and the United States dropping out of it. The United Nations, how effective is it? I mean, we've got this major international issue with North Korea and Kim Jong-un there with developing missile and nuclear capacity. The UN's not even mentioned in trying to solve those problems. It's all up to Trump and China and to some extent Putin. So I don't think the UN is more powerful than it was 20 or 30 years ago. I don't think they've got some secret agenda that's set to devastate the nation. The politicians that I talk to, the people in the system, don't seem to be led by the UN. I mean, there's enough my attitude would be this: there's enough craziness in Australian politics, enough left lunacy out there that you don't even need to get that stuff from the UN. We've got homegrown problems here that are a major concern.
Now, first up, I'd just like to admit that was me, Rusty Rhymes, on Facebook. And if you want to join up to my Facebook page and follow what I do, you're more than welcome to. But secondly, I want to basically highlight two glaring omissions from that statement that Mark Lathams made. First off, the amount of treaties that were ratified under the Howard government in his 4 terms of office. And the second one is Agenda 21 itself and how it actually affects us today. So I'm going to get into that shortly. Now, first off, I'd like to sort of point out the Howard's term as Prime Minister. And it started in the 1996 election, and he won that in the 3rd of March 1996, and he had 4 terms as Prime Minister. starting from 1996 to 1998. Second term from 1998 to 2001. Third term, 2001 to 2004. The fourth term, 2004 to 2007. And that finished, I believe, on November 23rd, 2007. Okay, now let's go over to Mark Latham, who was in office from 28th of January 1994 to 18th of January 2005, and for a certain amount of time between 2nd of December 2003 and 18th of January 2005, he was the leader of the Labour Party, the opposition leader. Okay, and he was a frontbencher for some of that as well. So when I asked him these questions, he should have been more than up to date with Howard's policies and what he signed, right? And when I asked him about these things that people never even knew about, just signed away to the UN to ratify, right? He said he wasn't a big signer of them. Well, I'm going to prove him wrong. Okay? Now, I have 3 pages of treaties that were signed, 2.5 pages actually, because just the way it goes into 25 treaties at a time. But basically, I believe that Howard ratified 60 UN treaties and multilateral treaties with other countries in that time. 60. Okay, let's go into some of these. So at April 4th, 1996, he ratified a treaty instrument amending the Constitution of the International Telecommunication Union. 31st of July 1997, Convention of Laundering, Search, Seizure and Confiscation of Proceeds from Crime. Right, these aren't in order. I don't know why they're not in order, but they aren't. Okay, so just bear with me. 24th of December, Christmas Eve, Convention on Nuclear Safety. Right, 13th of January 1997, Additional Protocol number 4 to amend the Convention of Unification of Certain Rules Relating to International Carriage by Air, signed at Warsaw, October 12, 1929, as amended by the Protocols done at The Hague, 28th of September 1955. Now, these are things that have been amended, you know, from a long time ago, some of these things, okay? 16th of December 1998, Convention establishing the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency. Whoa, hang on. What are we signing up to there, Mr. Howard? Anyway, 18th of October 1999, Convention on Combating Bribery by Foreign Officials in International Business Transactions. Oh shit, that worked, didn't it? Hey? I think bribery is one of the biggest things going around today in business. 1st of July 1999, Convention of the Prohibition of the Use, Stockpiling, Production and Transfer of Anti-Personnel Mines on their destruction. This was pushed by Princess Diana. You know, this was a big thing that the UN got in with her, and she was a face for it. Okay, 11th of March 1996, Constitution of the Asia-Pacific Telecommunity adopted by the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and the Pacific, Amendment Articles 3-5 and 9-8, adopted by the General Assembly of the Asia-Pacific Telecommunity. That's a multilateral agreement, as most of these are. Okay. 15th of May 2000, United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification in those countries experiencing serious drought and or desertification, particularly in Africa. Well, we've got a massive desert sitting in the middle of Australia. Don't see any mention of that there. Okay, 19th of August 1998, agreement between the Government of Australia and the Government of the Federal Republic of Germany on cultural cooperation. It's bilateral with Germany only. Okay. Why? Why? Never mind. 22nd of August 2000, agreement on social security with the Republic of Italy. What the hell are we signing a bilateral agreement with Italy for on our social security agreements? Really? Think about this. Now, if you wanted to claim benefits in this country and then move to Italy, why are we having a ratification on the people that are living in Italy but claiming an Australian benefit? Think about that, people. 22nd of August 2000, so there's 2 in one day, okay? Exchange of notes with the Republic of Italy amending and clarifying the agreement on social security on 13th of September 1993. Bilateral with Italy again. Okay, 13th of January 2000, International Telecommunication Union, I don't even know that word, Plenipotentiary Conference. And that's a multilateral agreement with obviously many other countries. Okay, 4th of September 2001, agreement with the government of His Serene Highness the Prince of Monaco on mutual assistance in criminal matters. Right, that's probably an extradition matter. Okay, great. Those are the things we should be signing on to. You know, if a criminal decides to go to Monaco and we want to get that criminal back and put him in our prison, well, you know, these are the things we should be signing up to. 15th of October 2001, treaty with Sweden on mutual assistance in criminal matters. Bilateral with Sweden only. Well, okay. We share information either way. So if a Swiss comes over here, we give them the information about that Swiss nationals or Sweden nationals information about what they're doing here, and vice versa. Great. 17th of August 1998, Convention to ban the importance into foreign island countries of hazardous and radioactive waste and to control it transboundary movement and management of hazardous waste within the Pacific region. That's a multilateral agreement. And let me tell you something. There are plenty of countries that have hazardous and radioactive waste that bury it in Australia. We signed up to this under Howard, 1998. Okay, there it is, right there. It's here. I'll leave the links in the underside, and you can read through this stuff at your own leisure. 29th of August 2001, agreement between the Government of Australia and Government of Samoa relating to air services. Yeah, just in case we want to put a couple of bombers there, just in case, eh? I wonder if Samoa wants to put a couple of their bloody bombers over here. Don't think so. I really don't think so. Anyhow, 4th of December 2000, Convention on the Safety of United Nations and Associated Personnel. Well, why are we protecting the United Nations and associated personnel when they stick their beak into places that probably don't concern them whatsoever? So what are they saying here? That basically that Australians have to go stick their neck out if United Nations get themselves into shit somehow in a foreign country. We've got to guarantee troops. Come on. 18th of June 2001, agreement recognising the international legal personality of the International Rice Research Institute. Okay, what's a study on rice, is it? Right. That's a good one. December 23, 1999. Agreement for the implementation of provisions of the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea of 10th of December 1982 relating to the conservation and management of straddling fish stocks and highly migratory fish stocks. I think that had a hell of a lot more to do than just fish. The clue is right here, law of the sea. Right? That's maritime admiralty law or law of banking, if anyone wants to look into it. So, what are they really signed up to? You talking these are laws of banks here, right? You've agreed to something of the law of the banks. And if you don't believe me, look up the UCC. Okay, Universal Commercial Code. Please look it up. It's very important because it applies to you. Alright. 1st of July 2002. Rome Statute on International Criminal Court. Multilateral Agreement. Right, okay. I'm not going to go into that. 25th of July 2002, agreement with the United States of America on Social Security. Now that's a big one. Why are we agreeing with other countries on our Social Security and likewise? Now this comes back to the law of the sea. Look up where your governments are incorporated. You will soon find that it's in America. They're on the American stock exchanges. And I'm talking right the way from the Commonwealth Government of Australia to the state governments of New South Wales, Queensland and every other state. Right down to the police forces and travel, rail, you name it, you will find it on the American stock exchanges. Okay? This is why we're signing something, an agreement with the United States on American Social Security. Need to look into this stuff, people. 24th of September 2002. Agreement with the Kingdom of Thailand on the transfer of offenders and cooperation in the enforcement of penal sentences. Yeah, once again, just you give me our criminals and we'll give you yours. 26th of October 2002, International Convention for the Suppression of Financing of Terrorism. Oh shit, that worked, didn't it? Hey, that's a multilateral agreement which is many countries signed onto that. Did it work? 2002. This was a year after 9/11. Don't think it worked at all. 11th of May 2001, Agreement on the Privileges and Immunities of International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea. Once again, back to this one up here. This one's even more important. Okay? You got to understand what the law of the sea is. It's nothing to do about fishing or where you fish. It's to do about you. Look up Universal Commercial Code, Maritime Admiralty Law. Okay? You will find the answers when you start to look. Now, let's go to page 2 of these agreements. Protocol amending the convention between the Government of Australia and the Government of the United States of America for the avoidance of double taxation and the prevention of fiscal evasion with respect to taxes on income. Now, why would they do that? Why would they do that? How many Americans living here at any one time, and how many Australians living in America at any one time? I'll tell you, not a great deal. But you're ratifying an agreement or a protocol on that? Seems like a waste of government time to me. Anyway, 30th of June 2003. Protocol concerning the Bougainville transition team made pursuant to the agreement of 5th December 1997 between Australia, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, New Zealand and Vanuatu concerning the Neutral Truce Monitoring Group for Bougainville as amended by the Protocol of 29th of April 1998. Now, why did they pass that? I'll tell you why they passed that. Because the people of Papua New Guinea had had a gutful of companies like Rio Tinto stealing their mineral wealth. And they fought back, and they fought back with a vengeance. So much so that they pretty much drove them out of Papua New Guinea. Good on them. Good on them. Hey, so what do? Yeah, we sign protocols and make it a law for them not to be able to defend their own country. Well done, Australia. Well done, John Howard. 29th of April 2003, Convention on Jurisdiction, Applicable Law, Recognition, Enforcement and Cooperation in respect to parental responsibility and measures for the protection of children under the auspices of the Hague Convention. Okay, so they've just taken, right here in 2003, they've taken the responsibility out of the parents' hands for the child and put it into United Nations law or international law. Wonderful. In some cases, probably a good idea. But what about the people that aren't doing anything wrong? What about the people that just want to homeschool their child? Hey? Nah, can't have that happen, can we? 5th of August 2003, Joint Convention on the Safety of Spent Fuel Management and on the Safety of Nuclear Waste Management. Well, you know how they make it safe? Once they're finished with it, they bury it in the bloody desert in Australia. Because no one's living there. They just bury it. This was exposed years ago. A lot of people know about it. A lot of people don't. 22nd November 2002, Convention on the Recognition of Qualifications Concerning Higher Education in the European Region. Wonder why they wanted to do that. Maybe they wanted to bring foreign doctors over from Europe. And not just doctors, engineers, anyone that's got a higher education of some sort. Yeah? They get first in the queue, those people. Right, 11th of November 2002, Agreement on Social Security with the Federal Republic of Germany and concluding protocol. Why? Once again, why? Why do we have to agree that with our way of doing it compared to Germany's? I don't get it. I don't get half of these things they sign. But once again, people don't know about it. Okay, the 3rd of July 2002, a Pacific Agreement on Closer Economic Relations, plurilateral. Well, yeah, that's just basically saying, oh, look, we want closer relations, and another country says, yeah, so do we. But that doesn't mean we have to do anything about it. It's a you know, you scratch my back, I scratch yours sort of situation. 27th of May 2004, Protocol against the smuggling of migrants by land, sea, air, supplementing the United Nations Convention against transnational organised crime. So people smuggling. Guess what's happening today? What's happening today is the Africans are getting on a boat, and 3 miles out they're getting picked up and shipped to Italy. That's a multilateral agreement, okay? Pretty much signed by nearly everyone. And this is happening today. They're breaking their own protocols here. Also on the same day, United Nations Convention against Transnational Organised Crime. Yes, because only their crime can be allowed. Only their crime. We don't want other organised crime sort of moving in on our territory. So let's stamp them out, and that'll leave us as a monopoly. 27th September 2003, Convention on the Conservation of Highly Migratory Fish Stocks in the Western and Central Pacific region. I wonder why that. Would that have something to do with people from Thailand and those from Bali and all the rest of it coming down and fishing out our fish out of our waters? What does that leave our fishermen? You know, where does it leave them? High and dry, doesn't it? So we've got a convention on it. You know, you can only fish certain amount at certain times of the year, and we leave the rest for the people that want to come and thieve our fish and fish us out anyway. Wonderful. 20th of May 2004, Rotterdam Convention on the Prior Informed Consent Procedure for Certain Hazardous Chemicals and Pesticides in International Trade. Well, how can you still buy Roundup? How come Monsanto can trade in Australia? Or DuPont? What convention? It's a load of bullshit. 20th of May 2004, Stockholm Convention on Persistent Organic Pollutants. Same as that. Bullshit. 26 December 2002, Agreement establishing the International Organisation of Vine and Wine. Oh yeah, you know, you don't want you know, the Barossa Valley selling out, you know, classic Italian or French wines anymore. So we'll have an agreement about how much you can sell overseas. Restriction of trade. 19th of March 2002, amendments on the agreement, operating agreement relating to the International Telecommunications Satellite Organization. What this is, you know, how many satellites you can put up there at one time. Let's not have anything cheap now. 26th of March 2004, ILO Convention number 155 concerning occupational safety and health in the working environment. Now, I'm a carpenter, and let me tell you, the amount of restrictions that they put on what you can and can't do in a working environment is absolutely disgusting. It actually puts that much price on top of what you want to build that it's not even funny. Right? And you have people coming around policing this. That's their job. They come around to police what you do. So here we go. That's just a that's just showing you that this isn't something that's just going on in one country. This is a multilateral agreement. Does it stop deaths in the workplace? Absolutely not. It doesn't. Okay, 3rd of May 2005. Amendments to the Constitution and Convention of the International Telecommunication Union. Yeah, because things are starting to get tricky by this time. You know, you've got the internet up and running. You've got optical fibers running. Things are starting to get tricky, so we've got to start clamping down on what you can and can't do with it. Okay, 22nd of August 2005, 5th additional protocol to the Constitution of the Universal Postal Union of 10th of July 1964, general regulations and rules of procedure of Congress incorporated into the acts of the 21st Congress of the UPU. Now that's an important one, because a lot of people don't understand. When something gets sent to you in the post, it's a legal document. Okay? Now I'm not talking about letters between two friends. I'm talking about a bill. I'm talking about anything that gets sent to you through the post. Right? They're legal documents. The moment you open them, they become legal, right? You are responsible for either replying to it legally or paying it, right? Same day, same stuff, okay? 24th of July 2005, additional protocol to the general regulations of the Asia Pacific Postal Union. The instruments were incorporated into the final acts of 8th Congress of the APPU. So, more postal stuff. Right. If you want to look into a lot of this stuff, I will have the links down below. Right? But you got to understand what the post really is. I've just mentioned a bit about it. Okay? Look into it for yourself. You will soon find the answers. Once again, another agreement on 29th of November 2005, agreement with the government of Ireland on social security. Bilateral with Ireland. You've got to ask yourself why, people. Why are we having mutual agreements with people on the other side of the world about our social security service? To me, it's simple. If you move out of this country, you cease getting paid by this country. If you're on a pension or whatever, it shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter. 14th September 2005. Protocol to prevent, suppress and punish trafficking in persons, especially women and children. Well, why not men? Where's men in that? No, don't get me wrong. Women and children getting trafficked is horrific, but what? No one gives a shit about men? Hey? Supplementing the United Nations Convention Against Transnational Organised Crime. Once again, organised crime. No, only we're allowed to do it. Okay. 27 October 2004, WHO Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Yeah, so if you smoke, these are where all the taxes have come from. 12th December 2005, International Treaty on Plant Generic Resource for Food and Agriculture. I wonder if this had something to do with GMOs. Wouldn't be surprised. 4th of December 2000, 1996 Protocol to the Convention of the Prevention of Maritime Pollution and Dumping of Waste and Other Matter. So yeah, don't dump it in the sea, because we've got the perfect place for it, right here in Australia in the middle of the desert. We'll dig you a big hole, you can bury it. And that's the way it's been going. Right, there's a couple more up here before Howard went out of power. We got the optional protocol for the Convention on Rights of the Child and the Involvement of Children in Armed Conflict. That's probably one I agree with. You know, children that are forced to fight, should they be held accountable for what they've had to do to survive? You know, I don't think so. Honestly. You know, if they're forced to be a soldier at 7 or 8 years old, how the hell can you hold them accountable? Right, 7th December 2005, United Nations Convention Against Corruption. That's a fucking joke right there. 10th of October 2000, Protocol of Amendment, the International Convention and Simplification and Harmonisation of Customs Procedure done at Kyoto. Right, so that was Australia's tipping point into the water of the Kyoto Protocol, which was ratified after Howard went out of government, by the way, not before. Agreement establishing the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat. Right, so now we've got a group of leaders in the Pacific Islands that come together and discuss their issues. 2001. 31st of January 2006, final protocol and partial revision of the 2001 radio regulations as incorporated in the International Telecommunications Union final acts of the World Radio Communication Conference. Yes, let's restrict what you can say and do on radio, and we will oversee it as the UN, eh? 17th of January 2006, International Convention Against Doping in Sport. Oh, fuck, because that's really important, isn't it? Hey? Really important. 7th of September 2005, the Constitution of the Asia-Pacific Telecommunity as amended. So they're just going back and re-amending something that they've already done. 21st of September 2007, Howard is not yet out of office here. 7th additional protocol to the Constitution of 10th of July 1964 of the Universal Postal Union, Universal Postal Convention, and the final protocol, the general regulations of the Universal Postal Union and the rules of procedures of Congress. Multilateral. Of course it's multilateral, because once again, you're talking about legal documents. 19th of December 2006, ILO Convention concerning the prohibition and immediate action for the elimination of the worst forms of child labour. Well, did that ever happen? You could go to countries right now and find children working in slave labour camps, making Nike shoes. Hey? So some of these things are absolutely useless. Just like Mark Lathams said. As I said, there's a lot in that little snippet that I agree with him on. I've only taken him to task on 2 points. Okay? The amount of agreements that John Howard signed in his time as Prime Minister, which I counted 60. Okay? 60 in 4 terms of office. So it might be 15 per term. Might not sound much, but, you know, I don't think we should be signing any. And that's my point. Right, 8th of January 2007, optional protocol to the Convention on the Rights of the Child on the Sale of Children, Child Prostitution and Child Pornography. Look, if you are going to sign one, there's a absolutely really good one to be signing. And same with the next one, but that was past his time. Here we go, 9th of January 2007, International Convention on the Control of Harmful Anti-Fouling Systems on Ships. Jeez, right, okay. And by the 12th of December, he was already out. So there's your about 60 treaties that he signed. So he was fairly consistent, 15 a year, practically, on average, or 15 a term, on average. Right, so that might not seem much, but if you understand, you go down here, you've got from 2011 and 2012, okay? From there, you've got 21 more treaties. So from there, we go into the part where Mark Latham talks about the leftist agenda in this country. And I plan to show you how Agenda 21 directly affects this overt, leftist agenda, not only in this country, but around the world. So let's get into that. Okay, so I come across this website called whatisagenda21.net. Basically what it is, it gives you a quick synopsis, as they say, in one easy lesson, of what Agenda 21 is. So what is it? What is sustainable development? According to its authors, the objective of sustainable development is to integrate economic, social and environmental policies in order to achieve reduced consumption, social equity, and preservation and restoration of biodiversity. Well, this sounds like social justice here, doesn't it? Yes? Environmentalism gone bloody mad? Yeah? Aren't these some of the problems we're having right here in this country, Mr. Latham? I think so. Sustainabilists insist that every societal decision be based on environmental impact, focusing on 3 components: global land use, global education, and global population control and reduction. Let that one sink in. Okay? You thought China's one-child policy was mad? Wait until you get into some of this. Social equity, or social justice. Social justice is described as the right and opportunity of all people to benefit equally from the resources afforded to us by society and the environment. Yeah, it sounds a little bit like communism, doesn't it? Redistribution of wealth, private property is social injustice, since not everyone can build wealth from it. National sovereignty is a social injustice. Universal health care is a social justice, all part of Agenda 21 policy. Yeah, right? What are we seeing in this country right now? You can't build a coal power plant because of the economic and environmental impact. This is all part of Agenda 21. Right. Economic prosperity. public-private partnerships, special dealings between government and certain chosen corporations which get tax breaks, grants, and government power of eminent domain, to implement sustainable policy, government-sanctioned monopolies. Yeah, like the CSIRO. Okay. Local sustainable development policies, smart growth, wildlands projects, resilient cities, regional visioning projects, star sustainable communities, green jobs, green building codes, going green, alternative energy, local visioning facilitators, regional planning, historic preservation and conservation, easements, development rights, sustainable farming, comprehensive planning, growth management, and consensus. Well, I used to work for a local council in Sydney, very close to Mark Latham's former constituency. As a matter of fact, the very council I worked for was involved with the putting the curtain up on the pool. Okay, I actually know the guys that did it. I worked with them. I did my finished my apprenticeship with them, actually. Very nice guys. I guarantee they would have shook their head when they had to do something like that. But that's another story. But this is what's going on, right? Who's implementing Agenda 21? It isn't state government, it's local governments. Local. Right? You will find all these things in local governments. When I was working for that council, they had a special team going around planting plants for biodiversity. And they had a team of 5 people going around, and that's all they did every day, all day. In certain areas, you know, they had quotas and all sorts of things. You know, but that's just one, one little snippet. Okay. So behind it? ECLEI, Local Governments for Sustainability. Yeah, I guarantee we've got this stuff in our back pocket in Australia too. Formerly International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. Communities pay ECLEI dues to provide local community plans, software, training, etc. Yeah, absolutely. These people that I was talking about, they're going around planting plants for a living, they were trained. They were well trained. Horticulturalists, most of them. Additional groups include American Planning Council, the Renaissance Planning Group, International City County Management Group, aided by the US Mayor's Conference, National Governors Association, National League of Cities, National Association of County Administrators, and many more private organisations and official government agencies. Foundation and government grants drive the process. Right. There's no difference in Australia. And I have something that I'll get onto later on that will show you exactly that. It will even show you the organisations that are involved in all this. So where did it originate? The term sustainable development was first introduced to the world in the pages of a 1987 report, Our Common Future, produced by the United Nations World Commission on Environmental and Development, authored by Gro Harlem Brundtland, VP of the World Socialist Party. There you go. Right? You're wondering why this leftist agenda is pervading the world? There you go. Socialism. The term was first offered as official UN policy in 1992, before Howard. So that's something he didn't sign up to. Okay? In a document called UN Sustainable Development Agenda 21, issued at UN's Earth Summit, today referred to simply as Agenda 21. What gives Agenda 21 ruling authority? More than 178 nations adopted Agenda 21 as official policy during a signing ceremony at the Earth Summit. US President George H.W. Bush signed the document for the US. In signing, each nation pledged to adopt the goals of Agenda 21. And let me tell you, they're bright in Australia. Bright. You've even got media outlets pushing this stuff. Right? So this is a whole campaign right through schools, education, and right up into media to indoctrinate you to believe that you are the problem. You are the problem. Okay? President Bill Clinton, in compliance with Agenda 21, signed Executive Order 12,858 to create the President's Council on Sustainable Development in order to harmonise US environmental policies with UN directives as outlined in Agenda 21. Now, we have similar stuff here. You know, the CSIRO is a big one. They're the ones that sort of direct the science behind this stuff, and from then it sort of rolls on to federal policy, you know, and who implements it? Local government. Okay? The EO directed all agencies of the federal government to work with state and local community governments in a joint effort, reinvent government using the guidelines outlined in Agenda 21. And that's exactly what's happened in this country too. You know, remember when Liberal was left and Labor was right? Yeah? Where did that go? See? This is all part of Agenda 21 to reinvent government. And they've done a stellar job, let me tell you. And there's a lot of people that bloody hate it. Absolutely hate it. As a result, with the assistance of groups like ICLEI, whatever it is, you know, ICLEI, sustainable development is now emerging as government policy in every town, country, and state in the nation. Yeah, absolutely, it's happening here too. Happening here. Revealing quotes from the planners. Agenda 21 proposes an array of actions which are intended to be implemented by every person on Earth. Let that one sink in. Every person on Earth. They don't care whether you agree with it or not. You're going to be implementing it. It calls for specific changes in the activities of all people. Effective execution of Agenda 21 will require a profound reorientation of all humans, unlike anything the world has ever experienced. We're experiencing the effects of it now. And luckily, there's a big backlash to it. Big backlash. You know, this is why guys like Mark Lathams can go out and say what they say, because we need them. We need them to go out and say what they're saying. Really, highlight the hypocrisy of what they're trying to do. Okay, yeah, let's move on. Urgent to implement, we don't know what it is. These are quotes, obviously. The realities of life on our planet dictate that continued economic development as we know it cannot be sustained. Sustainable development, therefore, is a program of action for local and global economic reform, a program that is yet to be fully defined. The Local 21 Agenda Planning Guide, published by ECLEI, 1996. No one fully understands how or even if sustainable development can be achieved. However, there is growing consensus that it must be accomplished at the local level if it's ever to be achieved on a global basis. And that's exactly where they've gone with it. Right? Governments, federal governments, probably wouldn't even know if they've been voted in after the fact. They probably wouldn't even know what's been rolled out at a local government level. No idea. Right? And this is where it's getting hit. Agenda 21 and private property. Land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and insufficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth, therefore contributes to social injustice. Do you need to say any more about that? This is the agenda they're rolling out. They want a socialist people. They don't want people to love their country. They certainly don't want people that are educated enough to stand up and fight for it. Private land use decisions are often driven by strong economic incentives that result in several ecological and aesthetic consequences. The key to overcoming it is through public policy. Yeah, this is why media is involved, right? Get you the way to think a certain way by watching their programs. This is why it's pushed through education. You have the children growing up learning this stuff at school, and they think it's A-OK. A-OK. Current lifestyles and consumption patterns of the affluent middle class, not the elites, just the affluent middle class, yeah, involving high meat intake, use of fossil fuels, appliances, home and work air conditioning, and suburban housing are not sustainable. Morris Strong, Secretary General of the UN's Earth Summit. Now, if you ever want to look into a man, look into Morris Strong. He is an ultimate scumbag. He really is. He's the guy that has pushed the climate change agenda. He's the one of the main men behind it. Okay, just look him up. You'll soon find more than enough information on that character. Reinvention of government. We need a new collaborative decision process that leads to better decisions, more rapid change, more sensible use of human, natural and financial resources in achieving our goals. Yes, not the people's goals, our goals. Report from the President's Council on Sustainable Development. Individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. Really, the Wildlands Project, eh? The collective that they indoctrinate, yeah? Not the people that are free thinkers and can see through the bullshit. No, their side only. We must make this place an insecure and inhospitable place for capitalists and their projects. I wonder why Donald Trump's coming up against so much aggression. Because maybe he wants to push capitalism in his own country. Yeah? This is what's really going on in the world, people. This is what's really going on, Mr. Latham. We must reclaim the roads and ploughed lands, halt dam construction, tear down existing dams, free shackled rivers and return to wilderness tens of millions of acres of presently settled land. Wow. Dave Foreman, first Earth first. Wow. Some of the things that come out of their mouth shoot themselves in the foot. You just need to look it up. What is not sustainable? Ski runs, grazing of livestock, ploughing of soil, building fences, industry. Industry's not sustainable. Hey? So how does an economy work without industry? You tell me. Hey, these are the things they're targeting. Single family homes, paves and tarred roads. So yeah, don't drive a car. Don't drive a car. Because you won't have any paved or tar roads if you want to follow this agenda all the way. Logging activities, Now, see, this is funny. Logging activities. Logging is actually a sustainable business. Why? Because when you chop down the tree, you replant the trees. It's renewable. It's probably the only real renewable resource we've got in the world. They want to get rid of it. Dams and reservoirs, power line construction, and economic systems that fail to set proper value on the environment. So anything that's against the environment, we want to get rid of, including you. You're against the environment. You breathe out carbon dioxide. You're against the environment. Disgraceful. Hide Agenda 21's UN roots from the people. Oh, this has happened. This has happened. So it's happened so much that a former frontbencher and a leader of the opposition doesn't know too much about it. Okay? Participating in UN advocated planning processes would very likely bring out many of the conspiracy fixated groups and individuals in our society. Oh, you mean the people that see through the bullshit? Hey? I like how they use conspiracy fixated. You know, it's you may as well just say conspiracy theorist. Yeah? Maybe, just maybe, these people that you could call conspiracy theorists have a real point. Yes? The segment of our society who fear one world government and UN invasion of the United States, not just the United States, every country, through which our individual freedom would be stripped away, would actively work to defeat any elected official who joined the conspiracy by undertaking LA 21. So we call our process something else, such as comprehensive planning, growth management, or smart growth. There you go. There you go. Okay? So this isn't just an environmental agenda, this is a social agenda. And we're seeing the real effects today of the social agenda and the environmental agenda going on. Let's not even talk about science, right? Because what I want to show you here, this is from the UN itself talking about what we have signed up as Australians to be a part of in this Agenda 21, okay? So it's the institutional aspects of a sustainable development in Australia. You've got different sections: integrated decision making, major groups, science, information, and international law. Okay? Now, I'm not going to show you all of this because it's a very long document, but what I am going to show you is a couple of things out of it. Right, so let's start with the decision-making coordinating bodies. Commonwealth of Australia is a federation of 6 self-governing states and 2 self-governing mainland territories. The federal government's powers and responsibilities are defined in the Australian Constitution, and the state and territory governments are responsible for all other matters. State and territory governments also have established systems of local government, and there are approximately 750 local councils throughout Australia. These are the people that are implementing Agenda 21. Okay? The councils. The principle of sustainable development is now broadly accepted and built into the working programs of key bodies of national governments, which brings together the national and state governments. As an example of these key bodies in the ministerial councils, including Australian and New Zealand Environmental and Conservation Council, Agriculture and Resource Management Council of Australia and New Zealand, Australian New Zealand Minerals and Energy Council, Ministerial Council on Forestry, Fisheries and Aquaculture, and Australian Transport Council. Right. So it's not being run. they're some of the decision-making bodies that are actually pushing this agenda out. Okay, sustainable living. It's what it's all about, and they'll do anything to get it. Now, what I want to go down it to is this part. This is the national decision-making structure. Okay? And this is the stuff that we've complied with on Agenda 21. National Sustainable Development Coordination Body. Yes, we've got one. National Sustainable Development Policy. Yes, we've got one. Absolutely. National Agenda 21 and other strategies for SD. Yep. Local Regional Agendas 21. Yes, that's our councils. They're the ones that are actually implementing it. Environmental Impact Assessment Law. Yes, we've got the laws in place to bloody make it illegal not to do stuff. Major groups involved in sustainable development decision making. Yeah. Wonder what major groups. These are private organisations they're talking about here. They're all part of bringing this thing together. National instruments and programs. Sustainable development or environmental education incorporated into school curricula. Yes! Right, so now it's affecting your education. Sustainable Development Indicators Program. Yes. And in progress as we speak. Okay? What they do is they look for people that believe in this stuff and don't believe in it, take polls, and adjust the program accordingly. Eco-label regulations. Absolutely. You know, you can't go down and buy your dishwashing liquid unless it's dolphin friendly. Recycle and reuse program. Yes. So much so that we now have 3 bins for different rubbish instead of 1. Okay, and funnily enough, the recycle and the reuse one only comes around every 2 weeks. Isn't that funny? You'd think they'd want to come around every week. Green accounting program. Absolutely. Access to the internet. I wonder what that's all about. Access to the internet. Well, because, you know, we want people to have access to all this information, but not the information that I'm pointing out, just the information that leads our agenda. National worldwide website for the sustainable development or state of the environment. Absolutely. So that's why they want access to the World Wide Web, so you can get onto this website. Policies, programs, and legislation. Combating poverty. Yeah. But you can still see thousands on the streets of Sydney alone. People living on the streets. Wasn't it Bob Hawke that famously said, "No child shall be living in poverty by the year 1990. What a joke. Okay. Changing consumption and production patterns. That's a big one. So what they want to do is they want to educate you to change what you buy and change what people make. Right? This is why manufacturing in this country has gone bye-bye. Okay? We've given it all to the third world countries, and we're sitting here twiddling our thumbs, basically. A lot of people without a job because we're not manufacturing anywhere near as much as we used to. I can give you an example. In my grandfather's day, we didn't just make cars, we made televisions, fridges, everything that you needed to survive in a country we made. We don't anymore. We don't anymore. Atmosphere. Yes. Land use planning. Yes. Forest and deforestation. Yes. Desertification and drought. Yes. I actually went through some of that that was ratified by Howard earlier. Sustainable mountain development. Yes. Sustainable agriculture. Yes. Biological diversity. Yes. This is the interesting one. Biotechnology. Right, so we're not going to get into working with DNA at a scientific level at any point. You know, certainly I'm going to make clones or work out the quickest way to kill us. We certainly don't do chemical warfare or biological warfare of any type. Okay, that's probably a good one. Oceans and coastal areas, yes. Freshwater management, yes. Toxic chemicals, yes. Hazardous wastes, yes. Well, that right there, that's hypocrisy. We've been taking in nuclear waste from other countries for years now. For years. I first heard about it in the mid-90s. Okay? And what do we do with it? We bury it in the desert. Solid waste. Yeah, you know what we do with that? Yeah, we pump it out into the sea. Instead, what we should be doing is treating it and putting it back on our crops. It would make things grow a hell of a lot better. You'd be putting all the nutrients back into the soil, and guess what? You would have a continuous cycle of growth. But no, we don't do that. Just pump it into the sea. Disgraceful, really. Of course, radioactive waste, yes. You know, not just hazardous wastes. Radioactive wastes, which I was really talking about. Hazardous waste, probably talking about, you know, blood and things from hospitals, and they're hazardous waste, needles, you name it. Okay, energy, yes. Transport, in progress, yeah, absolutely. I watched a program last night where it says the government in Sydney only owns 2 tollways, right? And the rest of the tollways are privately owned. So what is that telling you? Our government doesn't even have enough money to roll out infrastructure for transport. They sell it off to the highest bidder. And we're in perpetual debt ever since over it. Sustainable tourism. Yes. Okay. What else I want to get into here? It's the major groups. We've got women. Australia continues to address the issue of increasing the influence of women in environmental decision making in a number of ways. These include supporting the involvement of women and their organisations in environmental policy processes, particularly in relation to ecological sustainable development. The Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women was signed on 17th of July 1980 and ratified 28th of July 1983. They don't have one for men, do they? And this is where all this lunacy starts coming to the fore. Alright? This is all part of sustainable development and women's role in it. Okay, so it's just, you know, cooperation. Australia supports international program addressing women and environmental issues through the Australian Agency for International Development, or AusAid. AusAid provides funding to a number of UN agencies that work closely with women, including the UN Fund for Population Activities, the UN Environment Program, and the UN Development Fund for Women. AusAid also assists women in developing countries through its funding of individual bilateral projects through the NGOs. Also at an international level, Australia's participation in the United Nations Fourth World Conference on Women, held in Beijing in September 1995, reflected a commitment to fully integrating the principles of ecological sustainability in all aspects of regional, national and global development, and to ensure that women participate on an equal basis in this process. So it doesn't work on merit. We need an equal amount of women and men. Wonder where I've heard that before, Mr. Latham. You talk about that a lot. Of course, children and youth. Hey, same sort of stuff. I said you'll never find one on men though. Indigenous people, of course. Here we go. Non-governmental organisation. The Australian Government is committed to consulting widely with the community on domestic and international environment matters, for the purpose of ensuring that the views and interests of the community are taken into consideration. The Government has created a range of channels for consultation. A peak body reviews the international agenda, focusing on Australia's objectives in meetings with the Commission on Sustainable Development and other international environment meetings. This forum is chaired at ministerial level. So this is where I've got a bit of a problem with Mr. Latham and how he didn't know about this. No, this is right up his alley, right in his time. Okay? He should know all about this. There are ongoing consultations between government and relevant NGOs on topical international negotiation and issues relating to the implementation of Agenda 21. Yeah, so we've got bodies in the government discussing this stuff. What, you tell me it's not going on today? I don't think so. The Australian Government encourages participation by NGOs or non-governmental organisations on Australian delegations to International Environment Convention meetings at their own expense. Yes, we pay for it all. Well done, taxpayer. 2 NGO advisors join Australian delegations to a number of major environmental meetings, one from an environment development organisation and one from business. At a domestic level, the Intergovernmental Committee on Ecologically Sustainable Development conducts annual consultative meetings with NGOs on matters relating to the implementation of the National Strategy for Ecological Sustainable Development. Meetings of a group of peak conservation organisations with the Environment Portfolio Minister are held on a regular basis. Right. So when Mr. Latham said that, UN doesn't even really play a big part in anything anymore. Okay, there's the Environment Minister sitting on these in these meetings on a regular basis. An informal dialogue is maintained at officer level with both industry and environment. NGOs. More detailed consultations take place on a range of specific environmental issues covered by chapters in Agenda 21. Forests, coastal areas and ocean and freshwater resources are all areas of particular importance for Australia, and consultations on them with NGOs are extensive. Extensive. Right. Environment Australia administers a program of grants to voluntary conservation organisations, the GVCO program. The program aims to help environmental organisations both nationally and internationally for the protection and enhancement of ecological processes and natural resources as essential components of the well-being of current and future generations. Assistance is given to organisations which raise community awareness and understanding of environmental issues. So assistance, you mean money, right? It's given to anyone that wants to stand up and say, hey, let's be a greenie. All right. And ecologically sustainable development principles. Funding is provided under the program to maintain or enhance the operational capacity of eligible organisations to pursue their programs. Right, so money at all costs. NGOs contribute in a unique way to grassroots development and the building of personal contacts between Australians and people in the developing world. Yeah, this means that we give up a fraction of our industry so that they can take it over. It's what it's been happening for quite some time. The central mechanism through which the Australian government provides funding to NGOs is the allocation of development project subsidies for the AusAid NGO Cooperation Program. The AusAid administers this program in consultation with NGO community through the Committee for Development Cooperation. Wow, here we go. Here's the local authorities. There are approximately 750 councils in Australia, which vary in size, population, geography and budget. Local government responsibilities are also very dependent on the state jurisdiction, but include land use planning and management, and infrastructure and service provision. Local government activities including in such areas as urban planning, environmental health, water supply, pollution control, sewage treatment, waste management and disposal, and natural resource management can significantly influence the management and protection of the environment. For example, for this reason, many councils are involved in developing conservation and management strategies to improve their environment within their municipality and region. Most councils in each state and territory are represented by their respective local government association. These associations are represented nationally by the Australian Local Government Association. Bang! There you go. There's the one, right? They're represented nationally. They get together and they work all this stuff out. ALGA's core business is intragovernmental relations and involves representation of the Council of Australian Governments and intragovernmental committees, including the Intragovernmental Committee on Ecologically Sustainable Development. Right. Programs and projects. Environs Australia, formerly the Municipal Conservation Association, has taken the lead in translating Agenda 21 into practical measures to assist its implementation by local government funded by federal government. Local Agenda 21, Managing for the Future, provides a guide to successfully implement Local Agenda 21. Many councils are developing Local Agenda 21s or are involved in the process which are consistent with its principles. So they're the grassroots, they're the soldiers for this. Councils, right? I guarantee most council workers don't even know about this. Don't even know about it. Workers and trade unions. Australian trade unions play an important role in reducing the economic and human costs associated with poor occupational health and safety. So there you go. OH&S is another one that's been brought in by this, is it? And environmental performance through their activities in specific workplaces. More broadly, trade unions play a role in developing and implementing economic, social and environmental policies and programs. Development of the National Strategy for Ecologically Sustainable Development brought together trade unions, industry, conservation and community groups in an effort to address the mutual interest and concerns for ESD. Wow. Hey, you were thinking that you paid into a union to protect you. Doesn't work that way. The Australian Council of Trade Unions, the ACTU, yeah, a bunch of scumbags they are, has participated in a range of consultative processes with respect to both domestic and international issues. Why? What's international issues got to do with the ACTU? The ACTU participated in the Australian Government NGO Forum on International Environmental Issues and the National Greenhouse Advisory Panel. In addition, the ACTU participated in the Australian delegations for the Commission for Sustainable Development and to the first conference of the parties to the Framework Convention on Climate Change. Let that one sink in. You've been paying your dues to a union, and they're going behind your back, making agreements with other organisations about climate change. Business and industry. The Australian government recognises the central role played by business and industry in the economy and in efforts to move forward towards a more ecologically sustainable pattern of development, which just means more money paid out by them to be able to run their business. The government has therefore involved industry closely in the development of strategies and initiatives aimed at promoting ecologically sustainable development. Business and industry representatives are also included in delegations attending international meetings on environmental issues. Now, I wonder where business had any sort of role in the carbon tax scheme that was going to be rolled out before people jumped up and down, rightfully so. Hey? Because I tell you what, business was going to be the hardest hit. Do you think they had a part to play in that? Not at all. Not at all. Environments Australia aims to facilitate environment protection in Australia and the region by bringing Australian technological and managerial solutions to environmental problems. A key focus is to facilitate the growth of Australia's environment management industry based on both domestic and export markets. A strong and growing environment industry serves to promote environment protection and has an underpinning role in supporting ecologically sustainable development. Environment Australia works collaboratively with the environment management industry and has a good working relationship with peak industry body. The Environment Management Industry Association of Australia, that's the mob. There are a number of other programs aimed at facilitating the growth of Australia's environment industry. It's an industry. What does industry do? Industry makes money. This is a money-making enterprise. You're not part of it. This is a wide range of initiatives occurring within government and industry to encourage more sustainable practices. Industry has shown it can provide leadership in demonstrating best practices approaches, such as Alcoa's rehabilitation program at a Western Australian mine site, which was recognised by the United Nations Environment Program for its excellence and is now part of the Global 500. The government has also provided assistance to industry to promote the adoption of environmentally sound practices. Look, if you want to start something up today, you've got to take all this stuff into account. Environment's everything, you know? But Agenda 21 doesn't affect us? Right. Okay. Science and technological community. Scientific expertise is integrated into policy making at all spheres of government. All spheres of government. This is why I said the CSIRO has a huge role to play in this. At any operational level, most agencies have working relationships with scientists and engineers, and the expertise is instrumental in effective policy making in line areas of policy like health, environment, industry, communications, defence, education, and so on. The primary industries and energy portfolio has a specialised agency, the Bureau of Resource Science, which is responsible for managing the interface between science and policy and interpreting scientific knowledge for the benefit of decision makers. Yes, this includes, yes, climate change is real. So this is what you should do about it. Let's roll out a carbon tax scheme. Right? This is what's going on. This promotes better linkage between scientific and technical knowledge and strategic policy and program formation. New information technologies are being used in decision support systems that can integrate large quantities of data from a variety of sources, including remote sensing, so that this information can be utilized in a meaningful way. Distinguished scientists and engineers provide advice on environmental issues to all spheres of government through the Australian Science and Technology Council and the Prime Minister's Science and Engineering Council. Parliamentary committees regularly examine science-related issues of national importance, holding public hearings across the country. More specialised bodies such as the National Greenhouse Advisory Committee provide expert scientific advice on specific issues of importance to the Australian government. Scientific and technological inputs are sought in the development of negotiations toward international agreements, and consultative processes enable the public to comment on these inputs. Example, development of an Australian position on the biosafety protocol. Really? When was the last person you ever came across that had an input on what government does? Anywhere. Doesn't happen, does it? The government is also concerned that scientific practice is undertaken safely and humanely, and has developed stringent guidelines for work in hazardous areas like nuclear science, toxic chemicals, and genetic manipulation. Genetic manipulation. Let that one sink in. So we haven't signed up to the biotechnology program. I wonder why. Is it because that we are doing this on a large scale? Who knows? Wish I did. Guidelines for large-scale work with recombinant DNA and procedures for assessment of the planned release of recombinant DNA organisms. So I think what they're talking about there is genetically modified organisms. Okay, GMOs, foodstuffs that isn't really food. Think Monsanto and DuPont. Okay? The federal government intends to introduce legislation covering research, contained use, and field trials of genetically manipulated organisms. Absolutely. You can go through the past couple of years where you've got cases of farmers have their lot next to one of these field trials going on. Okay? And one of the seeds blows off into the wind into their farm and starts growing their product in another person's farm. And then they'll be taken to court because they're growing something they're not allowed to grow. This has happened around the world and in Australia. Keep that in mind. Australian governments recognise the important role of scientists, technicians and engineers will play in addressing economic, social and environmental problems, and is considering and acting on many of the issues raised in Agenda 21. Well, this was a while ago. I'm pretty sure they're implementing them. Right, the research and development corporations are research funding and investment agencies financed by government and industry, which also determine their priorities. Yes, because it's the government and industry's priorities. The people that are paying them, not the people's priorities. Many contribute by disseminating information to industry and the public on sustainable land use and agricultural practices, again improving the interface between science and decision making, as well as the implementation of scientific results. The status. Australia has a long tradition of independent research and a well-organised and often vocal scientific and technological community, and these contribute to the essential public debate about science and its importance to the economy and the environment. Establishing, strengthening links between the scientific and technological community and broader community in government, in education, in industry and elsewhere is an important part of more effective decision-making processes concerning environment and development. Whilst government can facilitate and encourage these links, ultimately they are a responsibility of individual scientists, technicians, engineers and the institutions in which they work. So, yeah, they're actually putting it back on the scientists there to go out and spruik propaganda. Simple as that. Farmers, we know what's going on with the farmers. They want them to change everything they've been doing quite well for a long time, just to be, environmentally sound. More on science. The one I want to get to. Don't even know whether they've got it here. No. I'm not going to mention education. I wonder why. Nothing on education. Because that's a secret, you see. That's a big secret. You're not supposed to know that these people are indoctrinating your children into belief systems. But, look, as I'm scrolling down, all the information for you is here. Okay, here's one. International law. In May 1996, the federal government introduced a number of treaty reforms. That would be under Howard, wouldn't it? Designed to take a fuller account of Australia's federal structure and the importance of consultation with Australian state and territory governments. At an intergovernmental level, a Treaties Council has been established as an adjunct to the Council of Australian Governments. At the federal level, all treaties, with the exception of urgent and sensitive treaties, are required to be tabled in Parliament at least 15 sitting days to allow for parliamentary scrutiny before binding treaty action is taken. In addition, national interest analyses are required to be prepared for all treaties which Australia is considered becoming a party. This package of treaty reforms will enhance domestic involvement in and ensure parliamentary scrutiny of treaties which Australia intends to become a party. In this way, treaty reforms are expected to have a positive impact on operation and implementation of international environmental law in Australia. Right. So they've amended the way we look at treaties as a government and as a country for one reason and one reason only. To have a positive impact on the operation and implementation of international environmental law in Australia. I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave it at that. But if you were in any doubt that Agenda 21 is affecting you today, I would think again. Okay? I've just laid out some of the things there. I could have gone into much more. But I haven't. I'll put all these links down in the low bar for anyone that's interested in reading right the way through this. Enjoy your day, and if you'd like to subscribe, please do. If not, doesn't matter, and I'll catch you next time.